Welcome to the Moving Past You radio show, a show about identifying, confronting, and embracing the obstacles that block and delay us in walking in our divine purpose. Each week, we delve into the complexities and rewards of walking in your purpose. Now, here's your host, Juanita Gaynor.
Hey everyone, we are back. Thanks for joining this evening. I want to thank everyone for all the prayers and the well wishes during surgery. That's where I've been, but I'm back. I'm feeling better now. I'm taking it easy. But one of the most important things when it comes to this journey is that you have to do your self-care. You have to do what the doctor tells you to do, and that sometimes requires downtime and surgery and things like that. But I want to thank y'all for checking in, like, what happened? We haven't seen any live shows this month. That's why, it had to just take some time to just, do what was needed to be done. But, we are here this evening. We have another amazing guest. And like I said, season 4, you guys have made it more than I can ever imagine. And we've just had some amazing women who have not only shared their journeys, but then shared how they've used it to help other women and men. I'm not letting the men go, and men too, move in their journey. And so it's my hope and prayer that what we do here, uplifts you, inspires you, and comforts you to let you know that your story is important and it's worth sharing. Okay? So with that being said, we have an amazing guest on this evening. Now, I know me. I will probably eventually at some point butcher the name, but no, not scary. So we have none other than Sara Nakmura, and she is a board certified therapeutic massage and body work. Now, we're going to be talking about today silent killers and unveiling the hidden effects of stress. Now, anyone who knows me knows that when it comes to stress, we all deal with it. But today we're going to talk about, how the symptoms, how we can work with it, and what we can do to be better about our lives. So let's talk about Sara. Let's talk about this amazing person that we have before us. Sara is a highly acclaimed best-selling author, international speaker, and is board certified in therapeutic massage and bodywork with nearly 30 years of experience in well-being and hospitality. That is important, y'all. Experience is important. Sara's effective stress relief techniques promote holistic health and well-being with expertise in corporate and private wellness domains. Sara specializes in assisting midlife leaders in managing stressful challenges in their personal and professional lives, getting you to simply smile again while maintaining a healthy work-life balance. She has a degree in hospitality management from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where she now lives. This native Hawaiian is trained in mental health first aid, has a master's level certification in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy, and studies a wide variety of other cognitive behavioral treatments. Additionally, Sara has over 2 decades of expertise in the hospitality and wellness industries, including management, sales, food and beverage, spa, casino marketing, and consulting. Now, I want you to welcome Sara to the stage. Now, before I bring her on, let me explain the importance of the experience that she has, and especially dealing in those corporate and private sectors. Because many of us who have gone through trauma, many of us that has gone through a lot of the things that we go through, we are at that age. We are dealt through corporate, and private. And some of us are now leaders. Some of us are training other people. So it's great to hear from somebody who is working in that space, because as we have worked through our trauma and we need to be better people, we have to now redefine what those symptoms are and how we deal with it in ourselves and how we can help our staff and others among us deal with it as well. So let me welcome to the stage none other. I'm going to mute her first because I'm good at, keeping you muted. That's my thing. But Sara, welcome to the stage. How are you?
Juanita, thank you so much. I'm great. And I'm so glad that you're doing better too. So I'm glad to see you here.
So, Sarah, I was one. We had a conversation previous, so I was just blown away by your bubbly personality and your experience and the passion that you have within the field you're in. But tell us a little bit about you and what led you to working in this line of work.
Goodness, I think everyone out there, you're watching, you're listening, you've experienced stress. And sometimes we don't know how stressed out we are. And I'm going to take you back to a time when I was in the corporate world. I was working for a 24-hour casino here in Las Vegas. And I can smile about it now, but back then, oh, Juanita, let me tell you, I went into work early one day and I sat down to have a cup of coffee with one of my colleagues because she was working the graveyard shift and she just needed a little bit of just reprieve from the day. And so we took a 2-minute coffee break. My phone rang. I stepped out, grabbed this call because at 5:30 in the morning, if somebody's calling you, you know it's urgent. So by the time I came back, my boss had come in early, and because it was such a big deal, we opened up this new outlet, this new Starbucks in our property, and he was yelling at my friend for just taking a quick coffee break, and she needed it. She needed to fill up her cup because she was depleted, she was drained, and it was then and there that I realized that not only was she stressed out, my boss was stressed out, and I too was having panic attacks. My hair was falling out. I was having heart palpitations every time I walked into my own office. And I created an autoimmune disease. It's vitiligo. And if you don't know what vitiligo is, it's what Michael Jackson had, where you lose pigmentation in your skin. And I had no idea what that was. And it scared me. And so that incident just put me in a place where I just didn't want to be there anymore. And I quit my job. I quit corporate. And Juanita, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I went into the most relaxing field you could think of. I went into massage therapy because I knew I needed help. And I also knew I wanted to help other people. You talk a lot about, embracing and helping other women and other people. And that's what I wanted to do. So I had to start with myself, but it took me years and years to figure out that myself, I needed to be the first and most important person in my external life. Because what happens, we take care of our friends, we take care of our family, we take care of everyone else around us besides ourselves. And that cycle kept coming up over and over for me. I went into personal training. I went into consulting. I did all of these other things. And again, Juanita, what's the common denominator? Me.
Yeah.
So again, I can laugh about it now and I put a smile on my face because I'm past so much of that. I have the tools and techniques now to get through my stress. But you know what? We're not all in that place. I still stress out, but I get through it faster and quicker with the tools and techniques that I've learned and also developed and help other people with.
And you know what? I'm glad that you said that I still get stressed, because I think so many people feel that when you go through the healing process, when you do things, you're not supposed to experience those things anymore. Not understanding that when you go through your healing process, you get tools so that you can come out of the stage quicker than dwelling in it. So thank you for saying that, because so many people think, well, you have all of this, you shouldn't stress anymore. No, I have the tools. It doesn't mean that I don't stress, but now I have the tools. Instead of drinking a glass or 2 or 5 of wine, I'm going to do some meditation. Now, you might still have a glass of wine, but you know what I'm saying. It's not
Exactly.
going to be, so.
Oh, it's absolutely true. And that's the thing, because we're so inundated with so much in our lives. We have more on our plates now than we ever did. And we have different types of stressors. The stressors come from the inside and come from the outside. And, we can delve a little bit deeper into what that stress cycle really looks like, because they really are silent killers. 1 in 4 people have some type of mental health disorder. 90+% of, healthcare visits are stress related. And so, yes, we deal with it and it's around us all of the time. But I remember back in those corporate days, we would kind of have this like, just kind of this competition between us of who had more stress in their lives. And it was kind of a funny thing because we were so exhausted, right? Hey, I worked 9 hours today. You know what? I worked 10. Oh, I worked 6 days in a row. I worked 9 days in a row, right? We do that. And especially
Yes.
at certain seasons, right? Tax season, you're going into it. You're like, hey, I've got all these clients, I have all this to do. And you go, it's kind of like that
Yes.
badge of courage. Like, look what I got through, right?
Right. You're absolutely right. And as an accountant, I'm just like, it is. I didn't do, you know what? I didn't do tax season this year, except for maybe a few clients that I normally do. I did not participate. I knew what I had coming down the pike. And again, that is with learning and knowing the tools and techniques and understanding your boundaries. I knew I couldn't handle it this year. I knew
Yeah.
that it would have been too much. So I just did not, open myself up for tax season this year for others. And that was the best result. Imagine having to be a month out for tax season because of surgery. Like that's crazy. But you're absolutely right. And we did used to have those competitions. We were really crazy.
Yeah, and I think we all did it, didn't we? And in some form or
Yes.
another, if we weren't, comparing, with our colleagues, we were, at home or at the bar or, just commiserating with our friends and telling each other that.
Yes. You're absolutely right. And so, what also asked everyone that has graced, the screen with me this season, COVID and the whole pandemic. How, the first question I have is, as a practitioner, how did you see it shift the communication regarding stress? Now,
Oh, that's a great question.
we all know that stress went up. We all know that many people, but how do just from people you've probably interacted with or just from knowledge, how did it impact the conversation and the dealing with stress?
I think two things happened. And for some people, let's talk about fight or flight, right? The activation of our nervous system when we get into a situation that's uncomfortable for us. And some people go into fight. And so that became argumentative. People started, going behind the scenes and saying things on social media, behind, a computer. And they had a voice and they were able to, put more of that out there because they were frustrated and they had, their opinions about certain things without
Mhm.
consequence. And what I mean by that is, you could open up any social media and you could see comments from people that just weren't nice at all. But
Yeah.
people didn't have the repercussion of saying it face to face anymore. Because if you're
Yeah.
looking somebody in the eye and you're in somebody's presence and that heart to heart humanality that we have stopped existing for that time period. And so what
Mhm.
happened was when people can hide behind, those words on a screen, they started getting, they're elevating higher and higher in their negativity. And so the communication in that respect was difficult. And you saw that quite a bit. And it still continues to happen because it's
Mhm.
unresolved. And then the other side of it is the flight or people shut down. They stopped communicating with other people. And,
Mhm.
you would see them on screen, they would show up for meetings or show up to interact, but then they would shut down their computer and then they would go into a little, what I call a little hiding space. No matter if
Mhm.
that's behind a book, behind a computer screen, or just in their own space, they shut themselves out from the world. So that's what happened with
Yeah.
communication during that time.
Yeah. And I can honestly say that too, because as someone who is an introvert and doesn't like to deal with people a whole lot, I shock people when I say that. The difference, I guess, for me was it was no longer a choice on whether I dealt with people. I was told that I really could not. And that's, I think, for me, changed the dynamic for me. I had to find other ways as an outlet because it's like now the option of just being able to go take a walk in the park just to breathe was no longer that option. And I saw people either begin to deal with, things at home, things that was that they could no longer hide from, or just completely continue to be in denial. And so what I want to talk about is maybe those people who just continue to stay in denial, and how the stress and stuff has now built up, and now 3 years later, how if you've seen any, how has that maybe affected just people in general, as now they're being made to come back outside and play unwillingly now, because they're like, I'm shut down, I still have the stress, I'm not talking about it, I got it, I'm adding more stress on. So now they're like kind of forced to come back outside. How is that playing out in the general scheme of things?
Well, there's a couple things that have happened, and before the pandemic happened, living here in Las Vegas, I would see people come here to relieve their stress, to escape their lives. I'm from Hawaii, same thing. People will go for a vacation, and instead of creating a life that they really wanted to live in, a lot of times we want to escape the things that are within our realm, whether it be the challenges with relationships or families, our work, whatever those things are, people want that reprieve. And like you were saying, when you don't have that choice, it limits what people are doing. And so that frustration would build up. And that's kind of what's happening right now when we're getting denied, what we can say, what we can do, how we can choose to, do things for ourselves. And the frustration level, amplifies. And so what I'm seeing now a lot of times is that still unresolved. We have not resolved as a society, a community, and in ourselves, resolve the challenges that came up during that time. And it was very difficult for a lot of people to really face, because whatever was going on in their lives, it amplified. And so if you were having a challenge in your relationship, I saw more divorces. If you were getting along with your spouse, I saw more births. I mean, you can see it. So many people had COVID children, and there were so many,
Yeah.
people that broke up and moved on in their lives. But there's some people that it fractured, even more, within their relationships, but they haven't resolved it yet. And so they're still living that out day to day. So what happens, right, is the definition of insanity. They're doing the same thing over and over, and they're trying to make a different result, but it's not. And so they have to do something different to get that resolution before they can move past it. And like you said, three years later, they still haven't resolved it.
So let's talk about some of those effects. Like, what is those hidden effects that they're not dealing with it now? And I'll just say some of the ones that I've seen just in even dealing with new clients that I have. One, communication is almost non-existent. Like, they don't understand. If I say, well, we can't do this right now, it is automatically taken as they can't do something, and they go kind of off of a tangent. And I find myself having to kind of walk them down, like, it doesn't mean it can't be done. We can't do it, right now. And because there has been no accountability for what they've said online, I face the backlash of, if I say you need to do something and then they talk crazy and I'm like, I don't need to work with you. They're like, they don't know how to handle because now there's a consequence and a boundary that's put in place that they haven't, didn't have to deal with. Meaning that's elevating whatever stress, whatever else is going on. And so what other, effects, the hidden effects of that have you seen just in today's society right now, coming out of the pandemic, coming with, what's going on, globally, and what we're dealing with as just the human race? Like, how are those things really going to, if they're not addressed, what can it do, overall to a community?
Well, I think
How
what
about you?
happens, you asked a lot in that question, because and there's a lot to unpack in it,
Yes,
but it's a very important,
yes.
series of questions within a question. But I think where we need to start though is our self-awareness. You talked at one point about being hangry, right? And what's the culmination of hangry is when you're tired, frustrated, and you're hungry. And when those things compound, like anger and angry, and that creates a more overwhelming state of mind. And how that comes out externally is we say negative things. We're mean to our person, our partner, our colleague, whomever our person is at the time, but we're also mean to ourselves. And so what we have to do, in my opinion, is to start with self-awareness. What's really happening in my body? What's happening in my thoughts? And when we've gotten to this external world of saying whatever, that unaccountability that you spoke of, and not having a repercussion. And repercussion doesn't mean you get put in timeout, but what
Right.
what repercussions are, hey, you know what? You hurt somebody's feelings. The words you said had an effect on somebody else, or something along those lines. And
Mhm.
and so when we reflect back in ourselves, I have this little this acronym from my book, and my book, Stressed Out and Don't Know What to Do. It's called the I Care System. And I'll run through it really quickly. Is the acronym I Care. So let's go with I. What is I? I starts with inside of myself, because the common denominator in everything you do, guess what? Begins with I. And so
Yeah.
the answers and the challenges that you face are within yourself. Now, it doesn't mean you don't ask for support, ask for help, but what going inside of yourself means is you don't have to always ask somebody for an answer, always ask somebody for a consultation. You don't always have to look something up on the internet, but you
Right.
do know that the answer is within inside of yourself. So that's the I.
Mhm.
And then C. So, and if you're at home and you want to write this down, great, grab a pen and paper, because it's really simple. But C is contain the problem. We can mount more and more problems and questions, but contain that problem that you're dealing with right now. So let's go with the scenario of finding something to eat. You're with your person, you're getting a little elevated, and you go, okay, is the problem that she never listens to me, they never know what I like to eat, see, you don't know me? No, that's not the problem. The problem is, what do we eat right now? So contain the problem, because we can make
Right.
it bigger than what it really is. And then A, what's that awareness? Again, go inside of
Mhm.
yourself. Is the awareness that you want to be right, that, oh, they don't know me? Is the
Mhm.
awareness that I'm just hungry? Is the awareness that I'm just tired and frustrated and I really just want to go home and sleep? And if the answer is, say, something as simple as, I just want to eat, great, have that awareness, and then go into the next step, is realign what's important to you in that problem, in that moment. And
Mhm.
if getting food is it, maybe you stop at the grocery store. Maybe you stop in a drive-through, but you probably don't want to, have a list of 10 things you want to do before you head that drive-through. You don't want to stop and
Yeah.
go, run more errands. You want to go get that food. Make sure you realign what's important to you in that moment for that problem. And then E, make your decision with energy, excitement, enthusiasm. Because even if it's the second best decision, you made that one decision in that moment, and that's the best decision for you right then and there. And then if you get excited about
Mhm.
it, you don't have regret. You don't second guess yourself, because 1%
Yeah.
doubt equals 100% uncertainty. And you don't want to question
Wow.
yourself, and you don't want to question others. So that simple I care system, I go really, really deep into my trainings about that, but that's the simple version. You can run through it in 2 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. Usually it's always hungry for me. Always. It's always hungry for me. I'm not even going. Because when I think about that, and you know what? And I know in that very moment when you were talking about it, I didn't really realize what the issue was. At that point, I just kind of tapped out of going beyond whatever. It was just like I tapped out, gave up, and was like, I don't care no more. Just I'm going to go home and go to sleep, and we'll start another day. But that really, is something that I definitely will take to use, because I get to those other parts, just the finishing up. It's like, okay, I've said what I'm gonna do, but then I do other stuff before I get to it, and now I'm more angry or hangry because I need the food. Like, forget everything else. So that I will definitely start taking that to heart. Maybe eating before.
There you go. And you know what? Here's the thing. When I was trying to figure out some of my health conditions that I've had over the years, one of the things I did is I went completely vegan, no sugar. I cut so many things out of my life and of my diet. And what I would have to do is I would have to have pre-made snacks, whether it be carrots or, if you're not eating that healthy, that's okay. Let yourself off the hook. You don't need to be. But have those things in place. I always carry around a bottle of water. I always carry, see, there you go. Are those pretzels? I love pretzels.
Yes.
But yeah, do something that satisfies you, something that you can just have right then and there. And if you want to start, replacing that with something else, then you do. If you don't, you don't. Because that order of importance, that realign that's important.
Yes. They're so yummy too.
But that's the thing. If you're here's the thing. If you're emotionally in a better place because you are dealing with your clients, or because that's obviously at your desk. So if that's what's going to get you through to the next person and to the next hour, to the end of your day, there's nothing wrong with having something that satisfies you. And sometimes we need that little reprieve. And for some people, it's standing up and moving around, getting excitement into your body, getting that motion back, getting the blood flowing. Some people, it's taking a mental break. What I suggest to do for people, and I used to have to do this before I would step on stage, because like you, I'm a complete introvert, but I'm what do I call myself? An extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
So I can get out there, we can talk to people, but then we have to go up and curl up and just go take time for ourselves. And so what I used to do before I could not speak to anybody. I would tear up, I'd cry, I would get choked up. I couldn't even say my name on stage. And so what I went through is this little routine. I would go to the bathroom, wash my hand with cool water, and I went into what I call the Zen zone. And it's a simple and easy process that I do in my book also. But the Zen zone is essentially just, taking that extra breath, getting into a grounded space. And again, when we put cold water on our hands, it flushes away physically the heat that's in our hands. So it cools us off, makes us more calm. But also I train myself to mentally be a trigger to calm my voice, to calm my nerves. And so try that the next time you get elevated. Excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, get cool water on your hands, splash on your face if you need to. But that's just another simple and easy technique to, when stress strikes, because you never know when that's going to happen, just to be able to have a tool in your pocket to move past it.
Sara, I'm loving how you are reinforcing that it's okay to have your moments. And because I think we as a society has become we always have to be on, we always have to be perfect. And what it's doing to people is not allowing people to be people and allowing humans to be human and having like that moment. It's like we're big children. We don't expect, toddlers to be able to regulate themselves all the time. And so we as adults, we've grown up and we've been expected to regulate ourselves all the time. So I do love how you reinforce that. Yeah, you're going to have those moments, but you have tools to help do what you need to do. And it's okay. I'll share a story about like my therapist. I remember the first time I went to therapy and I was bottomed out. I know that I was bottomed out. And I remember my therapist telling me, it's okay that you're not okay. It was the first time in my life that someone validated, like, it's okay that you're not okay. You're not expected to be okay after the things that you went through. We're going to help you become okay, but it's okay that you're not. So it's okay that you have stressful moments. It's okay that, one of these days you just want to tap out and be like, you know what? I just want to go in my fort and be whatever. So thank you for reinforcing that and providing tools to help them, really walk through that. So
Absolutely.
tell me
When we
more
give our
about your book. Tell me. No,
sure.
go ahead and finish your statement and then tell me more about your book. There we go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I think permission is important. I think, for those of you out there that, you need someone else to give you permission, Juanita gives you permission. I give you permission to do and be whoever you truly are, to do the things you want to do in your life, and to be okay with not being okay. Because like you said, we are human. And what we have are patterns in our lives, and we learn them from when we were very young, and we continue those patterns to right now, the decisions we make. And that imprint period, before the age of 8 or 9 years old, we've created those neural connections on how we deal with things in life, including stress, and including how we deal with other people and how we deal with the world. And so, when we were in kindergarten, we learned to tie our shoes, but we didn't learn how to tie in self-care. We didn't learn that. And so, yes, give yourself permission. You have it right now. Go do what you need to do. Absolutely. So that's the point I wanted to make before we start talking about my book.
But
And
I've kind of
go
perused,
ahead.
through the comments. So no, I'm cutting you off. You go ahead and then tell me when you're going to start talking about the book, because I'm just saying, I'll say whatever.
Oh no, I just wanted to reiterate your point, because it just really is important to give yourself that permission. That's all I was gonna. That's just wrapping that up. Absolutely.
Yay. So like I said, I perused some, a snippet from the book. I've actually ordered it, so I should have it soon.
Oh, yay. Well, what I
So
love about this, and I'm grateful that it's going to be part of your toolkit, because it's very important to not only take in the different techniques that I have in the book. And it starts with breathing, simple box breathing, because although we know the importance of breathing, we sometimes don't sit down and go and just have an awareness of our breath, going back to self-awareness.
yeah.
Right? And when we just calm down and do a 4 in, a 4 hold, a 4 out in our count of breath, it draws our attention to what we're doing, brings us back into the present moment. Because so many times when either we're in, that anxious future, or we are in the regretful past, and we're thinking outside of ourselves and not being present in our own bodies. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to create this book, is because these 2-minute techniques that I have, if you're not familiar, my book is called Stressed Out and Don't Know What to Do, 2-minute techniques to stress less when you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and burnt out. Because at any given time, we are some level of burnout, we're some level of exhausted, we're some level of overwhelmed, because of all of the things that we take on. And we as a society, and we bring it to a personal level, we don't know how to relax and recharge our lives. We know it cognitively, but we don't necessarily practice it. Sometimes we relax, sometimes we recharge, but when you put those two things together, to relax and recharge, you're able to get more things done. You're more productive. You have better relationships. You're able to tackle the world and all of yourself, rather than 50%, 25%. We look at the battery life on our phones, but we don't look at the battery life in our own world. And so, Anita, that's part of the reason why I created these 2-minute techniques. And also, when I would have a great session with a massage client, I would have about 2 minutes to tell them the self-care, and then let them on their way. And so I needed to compact these exercises into a small bite-sized piece. And when I wasn't able to work with people hands-on during the pandemic, that's when this book came to fruition. I mean, this is 20 years of my work all together, and I wrote it in less than a year because when that pandemic happened, I went, "Oh, I'm stressed out. I don't know what to do." And so gather these tools, gather these techniques. And let me tell you, it's it's uplifting, and I can smile about it, but here's the truth of it. The truth is, my colleague, my friend lost hope during the pandemic. She had some mental health challenges and she couldn't get the help that she needed. She ended up committing suicide. She left 3 children behind, 2 teenagers and one in college. And it devastated my world and my colleagues. And I told myself, I have something to share with the world because I can't touch somebody one on one. So I'm going to be able to touch people more with this book. And that's why I created it. And what came from that is being able to travel around the country, help many people out, and get to talk on shows like yours to be able to help more and more people. If you take one technique or you take them all, it goes in order, but you don't have to take it in order. You can learn it all and then pull out whatever technique you need at the time. Yeah,
that is so wonderful. That is, yeah. When I think of people, deciding that they to be to a point in a place where they feel like it was better for them not to be with us than to be with us. I always look at myself and was like, around that time too, I was like, am I out here? Am I being out here more? Am I showing people more that even at the lowest point, it'll be okay? And that's when I started upping my, awareness and being out there more, because people, just like you said, they need to hear from others who have sometimes felt at our lowest points. And it's like, it's okay to feel at your lowest points. And so I am so grateful that you took that experience and poured it into something that can be used globally, because that'll be here long after you're gone.
that's
Someone
absolutely
else,
true.
the great grandchildren will be able to use that. And that is the benefit of leaving an imprint. So thank you for taking that and, putting it in a platform that can be used from generations to generations.
Yes,
Because I know that was
and
hard.
thank you.
I know that was hard. Not,
Yes,
no, I was done.
yeah. And that's the thing too, is that when we put these things on paper or when we share them with the world, it's somewhat cathartic, but at the same time it does dredge up some of those emotions and it can be difficult. So, if you're dealing with something and you want to share it with the world, you know, give again yourself that permission to understand that things will come up, but understand also that you have the ability to resolve them. And when we resolve the things like we talked about earlier with the pandemic, when we can resolve it, we can move on from it. And some of the work that we do is when we dive deep into we call it the beat method, but what's going on in your body, what's going on in your emotions, what's happening in your actions. And the fourth thing is those thoughts. What are those thoughts that you're having? And when we pull them out and put them into a blueprint where we just kind of lay it out and go, okay, what do we need to work on? What do we resolve? And how do we move forward? Because we get so stuck. And if we don't have that support of others, we're not able to move through it as quickly because we don't know the answer, because we can't see ourselves. We can see it in others. And that's why we need coaches and supports and, whatever, whatever helps elevate you and support you. Go find that for yourself and hopefully connect with us to do so. But find what that is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so
And
important. That is so very important.
yeah, it really is. And I think I said this, I'm not sure if I said this, during our time together here, but in our previous conversation, I really admire and respect the fact that you got so, so vulnerable in talking about, what you went through and how sometimes you couldn't get out of bed. And when you had those depressive thoughts and feelings, you don't have very many actions, and the action of just getting out of bed That's enormous. And I think you said something along the lines of, everything else was a bonus. And sometimes we have those days, and sometimes we have those
Yeah.
moments. And not all of us talk about it, because I've had those days too. And
Yeah.
if we start making that part of the normalcy of a conversation, it's going to help someone else get out of bed. So thank
Mhm.
you for doing the work that you do.
Yeah. You're so welcome. And it's funny when I think about that. It was the last company I worked for, and we were just having this conversation. And I remember saying, I'm like, we were talking about it, and I said, and this was the first time I had verbally said it amongst people, but at that moment, the conversation was going forth, and someone needed to hear, because everyone always thought, well, she's the strong person. She can do anything. She doesn't suffer from anything. And I remember saying, I was like, there's days that all I can do is get out the bed and get in the shower. I was like, the lipstick is a bonus. You lucky if you get that. Like the hair is a bonus. I'm like, I was like, all of the stuff that is done is a bonus. Like I know that I have to put clothes on because I can get arrested. There's just certain things. I was like, there are days, and it was so eye opening, because for the people, I can tell for the people who it touched, who may have been struggling and they didn't have the courage to say they were struggling, to know that I struggled with that and I didn't care what no one thought. You could see the shift and the appreciation in their eyes, because it's like, okay, so it is good that I was able to just get out the bed. You could tell it was one of those. It was like, yeah, that's all I had too, but it's okay that that's all I had today. You know, I was like,
Yes,
some days, like if you get lotion on the hands, I'm like, that's a bonus. And my girlfriend was like, what? I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, getting out of the bed and getting in the shower and putting clothes on is all I had to give. I said,
absolutely.
lotion was a bonus, because it was just like, I'll put some lotion on. I have a little bit of extra that I can do something, a little bit more extra to just whatever, or I'm not going to wear long sleeves today, so let's do the lotion. So it was, just that extra push, and I'm like, and it's okay. So
Absolutely.
I
And and if
look
and if you
forward to
only have
sharing more. No, no, go ahead.
yeah,
I was saying I
yeah.
was ending with that, statement of I look
And
forward to sharing more with others.
yeah, and I'm glad you do. I'm glad you get real. I'm glad you get, again, that vulnerable. And vulnerable isn't weakness. It's sharing a moment in
No.
time. It's sharing what you've gone through. And I think that there's so much shame that's around certain things like this that we don't want to share them. I was brought up to not share personal things in my life. And so when I was going through certain things, I didn't talk about it. And not that it was good or bad, it's just how I dealt with it. And so many people
Yeah.
go, okay, I don't want to be labeled. I'm a people pleaser, or I don't want to be perceived this way, or whatever those things are for you. That's just the way you deal with it. And
Yeah.
we process things in different ways. We all do. And when you can recognize in somebody else something within you and you can connect to that and you can learn from it, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And let's go back to
Yeah.
those the silent killer part of this, because um, it's such a deep conversation to have, and a lot of people don't talk about it because of that shame. Because if you admit I couldn't get out of bed, if you admit that you're overwhelmed, if you admit that you need help, you're not as a strong quote unquote leader. You're not a strong woman. You're not a strong person. Whatever those labels or ties you have, it can be perceived that way. But here's the other
Yeah.
side of it, is that when we have the stress antidote, that antidote to that poison of stress, then we can move through it and we can have the strength to go, hey, you know what? That is what I'm dealing with, and I'm getting through it. And
Yeah.
I can help you get through yours too. But you can only help someone else if your cup is filled. And one of the things I say in my
Mhm.
book is I must give to myself today so I'm able to give to others tomorrow. Because if you're not able to get out of bed yourself, you're not able to help your clients. You're not able to help your fiance. You're not able to help, your children, anybody else in your community if you can't help yourself first. And, you just went through a surgery and it reminded me of, I've had several. I had my shoulder surgery, an abdominal surgery, knee surgery. I've had several surgeries, and each one I've had so much pain. One time I couldn't walk. The other thing you were talking about at one point, how you are not able to get dressed. And when you're not able to do the regular functions of life, you start to realize, oh, wow, I do have a great life. I normally can put on my clothes. I normally can walk, or
Yeah.
whatever that your normal is. Have that
Yeah.
appreciation, because when you're
Mhm.
not able to do it, then you go, oh man, I had it good. So
Yeah.
bring it to present. I have it good now, even though I got lots of stuff happening in my life, right? Let's create that antidote. It starts with self-awareness, starts with
Yes.
communication, starts with connection, all of those things.
Yeah. It absolutely does. I'm blessed. Like when I think of like just the basic things, I'm blessed to be to even be sitting here and speaking with you today. Like a year ago, this, the show the way it is now was just a thought. It was just a purpose of, opening up and having people share their stories. And I didn't know that I would get these so many amazing women who was open to share their stories.
Yeah.
Like little old me, my little old show. And so I'm appreciative because, when I just look back, my life is pretty good. It means that I'm doing something in the world, that I'm attracting people who want to be vessels to share their stories to help others. So I'm honored by that because nobody could show up and be like, I don't know what you want to do. So I don't take it lightly that people want to, spend their, time with me, and trust me that I've created a level of trust and, a safe space that, that being with me and sharing your process and your journey, that I'll, cherish that. So I appreciate that. And I feel that I am blessed every day when I think about sometimes not wanting to get out the bed or just being like, you know what, I'm done. I think of all the things and the people that I'm working with that, feel that they've trusted me with their story to help carry that as well as carry my own. And I don't take it lightly. So it's like, I can get out the bed today. You know, I can, make myself look presentable. So those moments, and I know people, and for those who may be listening tonight, I know you may feel like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything, but just that one person who confides in you, there's a light that you've shown and a vulnerability that you've shown that they know that they can trust you with their heart. And even if it's just one person, that one person is dependent on you to get out the bed. That one person is dependent on you to wig out and stress all the time. That one person is looking at your journey and it's helping them get through their journey. So we're just blessed in those aspects of it. You have
Absolutely.
men and women, and see, the men may not say nothing. They probably be behind the scenes, acting like they don't. But you have men and women who are taking those exercises and they are getting through their day. So we all have reasons to get out the bed, even though they want to sometimes. But we all have those reasons. And again, like I'm grateful that you have taken your experience, your journey, and you share it consistently and unapologetically, and that you do so with just an open heart and an open willingness to do so. And so that is what I love about you, because you can be like, I don't know this woman from a can of paint. I'm not talking to her about anything. So I'm grateful that you're here sharing your story and your journey.
Well, and I
So,
appreciate that. And
oh,
for
you
your
almost know
loyal
that
listeners, what's that? Oh, for the
No,
people out
no,
there
I said
listening, there was a
we're
little
going
bit
to
of
be wrapping
lag.
up soon, but I want you to talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of lag there, so I'm sorry I couldn't quite hear you. But all of what you were saying, and thank you for that, and that very kind of you. And I do think that when we do share our hearts, we connect on a different level. That communication is very different, and I'm so glad that we've connected. And for those of you that connect to Juanita and you're listening to the show consistently, you know what she's talking about. You have that level of trust. And you said it in your title about your divine purpose. And whatever your divine purpose is, we're all at a different place in our journeys with it. And some people haven't started presenting it to the world. Some of us are out there in the world and we're still refining it and trying to figure it out. And we're going to have these ups and downs and bumps in the road. But the more we keep sharing and the more we keep having these open conversations about not only stress, but also how to get into your divine purpose, or whatever, is within you that you want to get out there. That's such an important thing. And don't be afraid of the silence. Don't be afraid of those in between moments, because that's when we hear the most. That's when we listen the most. And those are the things that we pick up and take in. And I talked about patterns before. So when you create a pattern to get rid of the old things that are not working for you, just like we talked about with the pandemic, those unresolved things, get rid of those, create new patterns, work through the little incremental things that lead up to big things in your life. And one of the
Yes.
things I do when I wake up in the morning is I say an I am statement. And usually it's I am healthy, I am awake, I am balanced. Whatever that is, I usually, start with that. I get a glass of water, I start to hydrate my body. And so when we create those types of patterns, it creates a difference in our world toward the things we want and away from the things we don't want. So I think those are important things to really implement into our lives to really gain that purpose in life. So that's what I wanted to share.
Awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we begin to wrap up, I want you to tell people, what's going on with you, if you have any, new projects you're working on, how they can connect with you outside of the show. So what you got going on?
Oh gosh, I have so much going on right now. But one thing I really want to share is that the getting in more patterns that work for you. Because I see so much people are on the computer all the time, and I consistently help them to open up their bodies, to sit up straighter, to have better posture, which aligns not only their body, but I help them align their life. And so I have a free gift for everybody who wants it to help you to create different patterns in your life. I've got a 10-minute routine, 10 minutes throughout your entire day. So a minute here, a minute there. And it's super simple and easy. So it's at free gift from Sara, Sara, freegiftfromsara.com. And I'll teach you these techniques that you can implement into your life right now. It's less than an hour of information that you can break down however you like to. And then that way that we can get to a deeper level where we're going to help you to beat burnout. So that beat burnout blueprint that you're going to get after you get your free gift, connect with me and we'll dive deeper into how to help you to release these silent killers, to have the antidote to stress. And I love helping people. And, when we can help support each other, oh my goodness. I mean, it amplifies. It amplifies when we can do it synergistically. And so I would love to connect to you guys. She's got, gosh, you're so great having all these wonderful links. And if you go to freegiftfromsara.com, down at the bottom, I have the links. It'll take you right to my social media and we can connect from there on whatever platform works for you. And, another thing I wanted to mention too, you were talking about, legacy and leaving that earlier. A friend of mine just passed away. She too left 3 children. An unfortunate accident. Her and her husband both died. And she and I wrote our book side by side together. And so I'm going to help publish her next book. And so this is a project, heart project that I'm taking on, and it's about self-awareness and communication. And that's really what we've been talking about today. So connect with me, look out for that book. And we're gonna make that happen, and we're gonna raise some money for her kids too. So that's my heart project that's coming up also.
So we will definitely be looking out for that. And the minute you have the links or whatever, we will definitely be promoting that and sharing that on the platforms so that, we can not only get awareness out about it, but we have some babies to take care of with it. So we're going to be telling people to promote and buy and, so that we can support them babies. So definitely we definitely want the link to that so that we can make sure that the babies are taken care of.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure, Juanita, speaking with you, connecting with you, and sharing what we do. I love it. Thank you.
Yes. Again, thank you for answering the call. Thank you for, going through the process, because for most people don't know, it's a crazy process a little bit, but thank you for taking that time and energy and going through that process to make the connection, because again, this is just amazing. And I'm looking forward to all the things that you got going on and what you got coming down the pipe, because I'll be watching. I'll be paying attention now. I'll be watching. So, and to do and promote, because we have this interaction, but it was, I consider, a lifelong, partnership to support and uplift those who I connect with. So I will be keeping my eye out on the things that you got going on.
I love it. Accountability. I love it.
Thank you for being on this evening.
Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. I can get silly sometimes. So everyone, oh my goodness, thank you for listening. Thank you for being on the show this evening. Like I said, for Sara, everything, I will have all of her links on the website, movingpastyou.com, show notes, every link that we, have, whatever she's got going on. You can follow us. We'll be sharing that information. But again, I appreciate each and every one of you who's listened to this on live, who has listened to this, the playback, who's listening to it on the podcast platforms. I really do appreciate you guys, because you take your time out every week and allow me and my guests to pour into you. And that's not taken lightly. And so know that I love you. Know that I want you to be kind in all that you do. I want you to be blessed. And I will see you next Friday, same time, same location. Love you. Be blessed. Have a great evening.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Moving Past You radio show. Make sure to visit our website at www.movingpastyou.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes. If you found value in the show, rate us on iTunes or simply tell a friend about the show. And be sure to tune in next Friday for our next episode. And remember to always be kind in your word, your thought, and in your deed. Be blessed.